Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, guests, distinguished guests, dignitaries, Speaker Jasper, Mrs. Pat Jewett, Mrs. Jewett's family and friends, and a special welcome to all of our town volunteers to the Town of Litchfield's first annual Pat Jewett Volunteer Appreciation Day. A day where the Town of Litchfield recognizes and appreciates all of its volunteers and focuses on the importance and the gift of volunteerism. Volunteerism is the use or involvement of volunteer labor, the giving of one's time, talents, and efforts, especially with community service. Today is a day to truly appreciate individual sacrifices to our community and to celebrate Pat Jewett for her 50-plus years of community service to our town and to others. My name is Laura Gandia, and I will be the MC for this evening's program. Before we begin, there are just a few housekeeping items. Restrooms are located as you leave the auditorium to your right, and fire exits are located at both sides of the auditorium. At this time, I would ask everyone to stand while Chief O'Brien, the Chief of Police for Litchfield, leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, liberty, and justice.
Thank you, Chief O'Brien. Who is Pat Jewett? Pat Jewett is a remarkable lady who was born this day, today, in a year not to be mentioned. Happy birthday to you, Pat. She is a retired teacher from Nashua School District, a mother of 4 children, John Burns, Nancy Morey, Keith Jewett, and Karen Regal, a grandmother to 5 and a great-grandmother to 1. Her late husband, Will Jewett, was a very special part of our community and gave tirelessly of himself to our town. They are both the epitome of volunteerism. Pat grew up in Derry and has been living in Litchfield since the 1950s. She was educated in Derry schools, went to Pinkerton Academy, graduated from UNH with a BS degree, and received a master's in education from Lowell University. She is a retired teacher from the Nashua School District with over 30 years of teaching elementary and special education. Her political history began when she was a select woman, the first woman elected as a select person in 1979, and she did this from 1979 to 2001, and then 2012 to 2014, where she resigned on March 11th, 2014. 27 years in total. She also served on the school board from 1957 to 1967, 2004 to 2010, 16 years total. She was on the Conservation Committee from 1952 to 1954, the Recreation Committee from 1956 to 1963, the Zoning Board of Adjustment from 1985 to 1986. She was the Welfare Director or Officer from 1985 to 2010. She was the Trustee of the Trust Funds. She was the NPPC Treasurer from 1987 to 1995. She was the Town Cleanup Day Chairperson from 1995 to 2010. She was also the Memorial Day, Pearl Harbor Day, and Veterans Day Chairperson from 1980 to 2010. She was the Town Hall and School Building, she was on the Town Hall and School Building Committee from 1985 to 2000. She also has many affiliations. She was the 4-H club leader from 1944 to 1954. She was the Cub Scout Den Mother from 1971 to 1975 and 1952 to 1955. She was involved in her community church from 1958 to the present. She was a Sunday school teacher, a youth group leader. She has assisted at strawberry festivals, yard sales, and holiday fairs. She was the Extension Club officer from 1955 to 1958. She is a member of the Hudson Greens from 1953 to the present. She was on the PTO for Litchfield and Nashua from 1952 through 1995. She coached softball and volleyball in the 1950s and 1960s. She was part of the Alvin Booster Club from 1962 to 1965. She was the director of the Share Food Pantry from 1967 to 1972. Board of Directors Community Council 2006 to 2014. Learning Disability Specialist from 1974 to 1990. Part of the Friends of Campbell High School Booster Club from 2000 to 2002. She has also organized senior citizens events from 2010 to the present. She set up the seniors group in town. She's organized various events for veterans, care packages, socks for seniors, collected backpacks and supplies for children of Litchfield, distributed dictionaries to students at Griffin Memorial, and she's volunteered at various shelters. Now, I am absolutely sure that I am still missing some of her contributions, because just about every time I speak to someone about her, they tell me another story of how she gave of herself to a cause that I was not aware of. It is truly remarkable, the stories that I will hear about her, whether it was cooking food for someone, baking, delivering items to a person in need. Everyone always had a story. At this point, we have several speakers who would like to tell a story or say a few words about and to you, Pat. Our first speaker is Pat's son-in-law, John Maury, who is married to Pat's daughter, Nancy.
life. The first one has been helping people, and the second one has been spending as little as possible while doing it. Pat never came across a local cause that wasn't worth supporting or a scrap of paper that wasn't worth keeping. Through the years, we've served on a lot of committees together. I was usually secretary. I'm sorry, getting a sore throat. If I had to miss a meeting, it was good to know that Pat would take notes for me. Well, it was good until she handed them to me to be typed. Page 1 might be on the back of an envelope. Page 2 could be in the margins of an old treasurer's report somebody had left on the table. And if the meeting ran long, she might have had to go back to the envelope and write around and around the address on the front of it. The closer she came to running out of space, the smaller her handwriting got. But it was all there. When we first started volunteering, there wasn't even a town hall to meet in. We often gathered in each other's homes or in the basement of the library. So it just seemed natural to serve coffee and treats after meetings. Pat would often volunteer to take the styrofoam cups home. I'll wash them and we can use them again, she'd say. The first yard sale Pat and I worked on together was to benefit Litchfield's American Bicentennial Committee in 1976. Like most yard sales, it was held at Pat and Will's house on 102. As we grabbed things by the armload out of their crammed full garage and lay them out on the tables in the front yard, I found a single child's rubber boot. Well, the other boot never turned up, so I tossed it in the trash. Pat came right behind me, pulled it out of the trash, stuck a price tag on it, and said, "Somebody will buy this." Within the hour, somebody had bought the boot. I expect it was going to be used for a planter or something, I don't know. But Pat had been right, as she often was. Waste not, want not. Pat's mantra. This was especially true when it came to using tax dollars. One year when I worked at Town Hall, I asked the selectmen for a sizable increase in my postage budget. Pat asked why. I said, because stamps will be going up before the tax bills go out. And she said, why don't you buy them now before the price increases? Well, the Postmaster General must have been listening because now we've got forever stamps, so Pat suggestion, it would work now. You learned never to ask Pat a question unless you were prepared to hear the truth. When her answer started out with, well, I've got to be perfectly honest, you knew you weren't necessarily going to like it, but you probably needed to hear it. Once we'd organized a field day for local kids and Pat was handing out ribbons to those who won various races. Afterwards, her daughter said, "You forgot me. I won such and such." I don't remember what. Pat said, "I didn't forget you. There weren't enough ribbons." Somebody else's child might have cried or said, "That's not fair." But no child of Pat Jewett's could have failed to learn the importance of putting other people first. My own kids noticed too. The other day I was telling a son who lives in Georgia that we would be doing this today, and he said, in my whole life, every time I went to anything, Mrs. Jewett was there. Thinking about all the things she's done, I was tempted to write that they don't make them like Pat anymore. Well, they don't make them exactly like Pat anymore, that's for sure. And to wonder why Litchfield's young people don't get involved the way we used to. And then I came across a National Telegraph article written by Claudette DeRocher, published on December 27, 1963. Claudette was interviewing Bertha Campbell, who had lived in Litchfield for 69 of her 80 years. Here's what Mrs. Campbell had to say. We've tried to get the people in town to join organizations and activities. I don't know what it is, but people just don't join.
back in Litchfield. Probably wondering why I'm here. I still substitute teach once in a while at the middle school when they need someone with a pulse to come in. And I happened to be subbing about 3 weeks ago, and I saw the flyer up, and Laura was subbing that day too. We were working next rooms next to each other, and she told me about the event, so I told her a couple stories. She said, "Oh, could you come and share them?" So that's why I'm here. I would have wore a shirt at the time, but I thought it was more of an open mic kind of setup. So anyway, two stories that come to mind about Pat. The first one's kind of a funny story. This was when my first year in Litchfield. Back then, we didn't have a middle school or a high school. It was Griffin was just a readiness through grade 8 building, and I was the assistant principal there. And it was the year 1985-86 school year. And 1986 was a real changing year, a very important year in the town's history. It was the year that in 1986 that we voted for a new middle school, and it was also the year that the town approved the variance to build Passaconaway Golf Course. So a very important year that year. And back then we didn't have a deliberative session. We didn't have Senate Bill 2. Everything was voted on a Friday night for the school. 1 week, all the school budget, all the school teachers, everything was voted on that night. It wasn't a ballot. People would vote on a Tuesday. You had to go to the meeting to be heard. And then the following week was going to be the town meeting where they were going to talk about the golf course. That particular year, the superintendent at the time was Peter Dollar, and we didn't have a lot of audio-visual or equipment back then, and the meeting was held in the gym at GMS. And we knew we were going to have a lot of people because we were voting on a school, a whole new school, and a lot of people wanted to be heard. So we hired an audio-visual company. I think they're located in Nashville, but they live in Hudson anyway. We had them come in, and they set a beautiful mic system with amplifiers, and they stayed there all night monitoring it, and it went really well. It worked great. At the end of the night, so that was the school side. Again, the town meeting was going to be next Friday night. At the end of the night, they were breaking everything down, and Pat went up, and she really liked being able to hear all that and how well it worked. And she asked the person that was there, and it was the owner. She asked her, "Would you be willing to do that next Friday night for the town side?" And the guy said, "Sure, I'll put you on my list." And he said, the guy said, "It'll be the same amount of money. I think it was around $200." And Pat looked at it. She said, "Well, we're a little short of funds this year for this. Could I make you a couple of pies?" I remember the guy looked at me and said, "I got plenty of pie, lady." But that was a funny story. And the last story I just want to tell is really a more serious story, and it really speaks of Pat's. I mean, she does so many things. We know some of those things, but she does it selflessly, and Will did too. Selflessly, they did so many of these things. I want to say this was probably 2007 or 2008. I had finished, been at the middle school for 18 years as principal, and I was back at Griffin towards the end of my career. And it was in late May, and our flagpole broke at GMS. It was an old flagpole, and it was some rust or something, or some failures in the metal, and it broke. We couldn't use it anymore. So Pat was on the school board then, I think. We were on the school board then. So I went to the school board on a Wednesday night, told them about the flagpole, and can I have some funds? Can I get some funds approved? Because it was over $1,000. Have some funds approved, and we could get the flagpole fixed. And the board said, "Well, yeah, we feel bad about. Can you hold off till July 1st because that's when the new budget comes in? There'll be money done in the repair account. We don't have any money left in that account." So I said, "Okay, fine. We'll wait till July 1st." It was on Wednesday night. On Friday afternoon, Pat and Will showed up at my office at school and asked to speak with me. So I went in, and they didn't want anyone to know about it. This is what I'm talking about, selflessness. They didn't want anyone to know about it, and they handed me a check for the flagpole, and personal check for the flagpole, and she even had the flag. She went out and bought a flag somewhere and had a flag.
was asked to speak about Pat today, I was honored. I've known Pat for over 20 years. My first contact with her was when I was being interviewed for the police officer job. Pat's questions were always about the youth in town and how important it was for the community to focus on the youth. Little did I know when I was being interviewed that Pat is very sincere and genuine when she talks about this belief. Pat's values and willingness to make Litchfield a better place has never changed the entire time I've known her. She's served in so many positions as a volunteer, from welfare officer, select woman, school board, to name a few. Her influences are still felt in Litchfield. Pat had a simple slogan, firm but fair. Whether you're one of her many students or a department head, Pat was always firm and fair. She treated everyone the same. She was never one to be pushed into a decision she didn't believe that she believed was wrong. For this, I have a personal thing. I have a short story about Pat, and it involves our town administrator, Jason Hope. If you know Jason, Jason is all about IT, getting Google Docs set up, getting us off of MySpace and into, what's the other one called? Facebook? Facebook, yeah. So, in doing this, that's how we communicate. Well, he told me in a short order time he would have Pat at a computer sending emails and receiving emails. Well, if you know Pat, that's not Pat. If Pat's going to see you, if Pat wants to talk to you, she's going to come and talk to you. Or she's going to call you on the phone, or like in my case, I'll receive a note on my desk from Pat. I expressed this wager with Jason. He said clearly he'll have her up and running. So our wager in the office is generally a sub. So Jason said, yeah, I'll bet you a sub. I quickly grabbed that because I knew that I would win. So one day I walked into the office, he's teaching Pat the computer. I'm like, and he's feeling very confident that this is going to happen. Thank you, Pat, that sub was delicious. Pat, I want to thank you for all you've done for this great community, and thank you for your years as a friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief O'Brien. Pat, you are an amazing person, and the town of Litchfield is deeply indebted to you and for all that you have done. As you are aware, Pat is a retired school teacher with the Nashua School District with over 30 years of teaching and a member of our school board for many years. She made a significant impact on the education here in Litchfield and touched the lives of many teachers, administrators, and students. Next, I would like to introduce the principal of Campbell High School, Lori Rothaus, for a presentation.
Gandhi said, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." Pat Jewett, we all want to make a difference in the world. And you've been our role model, you've been our leader, you're an amazing person with such grace and dignity. I have to tell you, when I first came to Litchfield, Pat was on the school board. And one day after a meeting, she started to talk to me about Litchfield. And she was like, "Honey, where are you from?" And I said, "Merrimack." And she's like, "Okay, Merrimack." But the good news is my daughter and son-in-law and grandson live in Merrimack. And so we started to talk, and I realized that I had taught her grandson, who was an amazing, brilliant student and was so much like Pat. And he's here today, and it's so exciting. And he just told me today, he says, every time my grandmother sees me, he says, "Do you know who the principal is at Campbell High School?" Lori Rothaus. So anyway, Pat Jewett is an amazing person, and it's my honor to have her here. She's a cheerleader for education, and she's personally touched my heart because every time she sees me, she does the same thing, be fair and firm
Margaret Parent, who is speaking on behalf of the Litchfield Education Association.
I was asked to represent the Litchfield Education Association from Griffin Memorial School and to tell you about a few of the things that she has done for the students in our building. So on behalf of the Litchfield Education Association, I would like to thank Pat Jewett for her years of dedication and her volunteer work to the town of Litchfield, and especially to the children of our Litchfield School District. Her involvement in the school system began as a parent and as a PTA member when her 4 children, Jack and Nancy, Keith and Karen, were students here in Litchfield. While on the PTA, Pat was involved in bringing enrichment programs to the children and chaired many school events and fundraisers. And during this time, she also served on the school board for her first time. Pat has been a friend and a supporter of the school system, and we appreciate all she has done for the school and for the children. For years, she has bought and donated backpacks and school supplies so all children could have these items to begin a new school year. She donated clothing to children whose families were having a difficult time. Items such as underwear and socks and warm jackets and mittens and hats. She provided healthy snacks to the nurse's office for children who did not have snacks to make sure that they were eating something healthy and nutritious. She also provided pocket dictionaries for every 3rd grade student for their personal use, to use at school or to have at home with their homework. When the Winslow family lost their house to a fire several years ago, Pat took in many of the family members, and especially the younger children, so it would be least destructive or disruptive in their education until their house could be rebuilt. When Pat collected items for the Christmas time to send to the servicemen and women who were serving overseas, she always included letters and holidays cards written by the school children. She said the soldiers always look forward to those greetings from home, and especially those serving who had been former students. This act of letter writing instilled respect for our veterans and taught our children at a young age that you too can volunteer at any level and make a difference. And another example of a volunteer work was when she and Will, one hot summer, painted the nurse's office in our building, a deed I know our school nurse, Sue Seabrook, really appreciated. These are only a few of the examples of what Pat has done and touched the lives of hundreds of children in Litchfield. So Pat, for your volunteer work and your acts of kindness, the Litchfield Education Association would again like to thank you for all that you have done for our students. And for myself, as a fellow teacher and friend, I also thank you for all you have done for our school and the town of Litchfield. We would like to present you with a volunteer certificate.
Thank you, Margaret Parent. We are honored to have with us 2 of our elected officials at the state level. We have Speaker Jasper and Senator Donna Susie. I would like to first introduce Speaker Speaker Sean Jasper for a proclamation.
Thank you, Laura. As I was thinking about people that I have known my whole life, I realized a few days ago that aside from family members, there are two people in this room right now that I cannot remember not knowing. And that's Pat and Nancy. They've really been a part of my life and my family forever. My mother used to let Nancy walk me around the farm and take care of me. I won't say how old she was then. She was very young. She had to lift me up and let me look in the hen houses and check out on all the chickens, and there were about 25,000 birds on that farm at that time, so I kept her busy. But Pat, when I think about Litchfield, I can't think about Litchfield without thinking about you. I would say that if you had to pick out a person and say, who's the heart and soul of Litchfield, it truly is Pat Jewett. She's been working for this town probably longer than anyone here can remember. Now, as we've heard some stories, she is famous at being frugal. Some might even say cheap, but I won't say that, Pat. But you know, what hasn't been said is that Pat did not have an easy life. She worked hard. She did any job that she could to support her family and to better herself. She worked her way through school to a better life for her and for her family. And so she learned those values that she didn't need to spend money needlessly, that she always looked for the best value that she could. She always looked for something, if it was gently used, would suit her purposes. But she provided for her family, and she provided for a better life. And I think she very obviously carried that on into her civic life. Not because she didn't think there were some people that couldn't afford it, but I believe that it was because she knew there were some people who couldn't. And those people were always in the forefront of her thoughts when working for the Litchfield community. And I really think that she has made it a much better community. I know that it is a much better community than if she had not been here. And while the proclamation really speaks to just the years that she was an elected official, we all know that we're well over 60 years, she has been part of this community. So without any further ado, State of New Hampshire House of Representatives, a declaration. Let it be known that the New Hampshire House of Representatives, on this very special occasion, publicly does grant its hearty and sincere congratulations to M. Patricia Jewett in recognition of her public service to the town of Litchfield, New Hampshire. Whereas M. Patricia Jewett has served the town of Litchfield and its citizens for nearly 3 decades, and whereas she is known throughout the community as a person who continuously gives of herself, dedicating countless hours of her personal time and resources to assist the citizens of Litchfield, and whereas she has annually collected and distributed school supplies for children in the fall, provided food to needy families during the holidays, and regularly assisted youth with community service, and continues to encourage residents of all ages to volunteer and serve. Therefore, be it declared that the New Hampshire House of Representatives, by virtue of the Speaker's signature inscribed below, extends its highest accolades and plaudits to M. Patricia Jewett for exemplary public service, knowing that in all future years the date of March 1st will be recognized in the town of Litchfield as Pat Jewett Volunteer Appreciation Day. Sean N. Jasper, Speaker of the House.
Thank you, Speaker Jasper. Next, I would like to introduce Senator Donna Susie for a presentation.
tell you that I knew her by reputation before I decided to run for the Senate in 2012. And our first contact was actually not an email or a phone call, Jason, but it was a wonderful handwritten note inviting me to spend more time in Litchfield and to participate in a candidate forum. It was, of course, quickly followed up by a phone call from Pat, encouraging me to spend more time in Litchfield and to, as I said, come to the candidate forum. And one of the things I learned many things about Pat as I was attending some of these events, but most importantly are things like, that she's the heart and soul of the community, that she's firm but fair. I also learned that you can't say no to Pat Jewett. And that's something that I think many of us in this room know. Pat walks the walk and talks the talk. She has made a difference in this town for more than 60 years because she not only inspires others to do, but if others don't step up, Pat always steps up and takes charge and organizes the product and organizes the events and makes sure that the neediest people in particular in Litchfield have always been served. I always marvel at women like Pat who've served in elective office for as long as she has, at a time when a lot of women didn't serve. And I certainly think that she's a role model, not because of her public life, but because of the very personal way that she has served this community over the years. So I'm honored to be here today, and I wanted to present her with a resolution, and be it known that the New Hampshire Senate extends its congratulations to Patricia Jewett in recognition of more than 50 years of volunteer service to the town of Litchfield, and be it further known that the New Hampshire Senate extends its best wishes for a well-deserved retirement. Now, I don't believe Pat is ever really going to retire, but let's just say that she is. Congratulations, Pat, and thank you.
As you can see, Pat has touched and inspired the lives of many through her acts of kindness, generosity, and civic duty. Because of this, the town of Litchfield has proclaimed March 1st, which is also Pat's birthday, as the Pat Jewett Volunteer Appreciation Day. And I would like to introduce Jason Hodge, our town administrator, to tell you more about this day. He, along with members from the Board of Selectmen, will then recognize and present certificates to our town volunteers.
Before we move into the volunteer segment, I do want to share a couple other stories about working with Pat. When I came to town 5 years ago, I relied on 3 or 4 people to help me understand what Litchfield was about. And Pat was vital to my understanding about what the heart and soul of this community was. Pat was also the conscience for me, the reminder, whether it was those times I needed to speed up, those times I needed to slow down, those times that we needed to pay a little bit more attention to those less fortunate. I had the opportunity to see all of the times that Pat would have conversations with me about how can we help this person, how can we help this group. There are things that you've heard discussed today, and there are things that probably only Pat knows, and that was truly incredible to me. It was also a healthy reminder for somebody who sits in the office, do this every day, sit there every night, go to a meeting. You get frustrated sometimes in your day job. And then I'd have a call from Pat, and it would be this reminder to me as I got off the phone and kind of reflected on, okay, you're talking to somebody who has been in government before you were old enough to spell government. So on the whatever is possibly bad today, remember the bigger picture of public service and why people do it. And I appreciate having that reminder. I also appreciate one of the things that happens for us is the Board of Selectmen usually meets every other week. So on the off weeks, there would sometimes be things that would need to be signed. Account sometimes there would be cookies, breads, pieces of pie waiting for me. Sometimes there were those notes that Diane mentioned earlier. Pat found pieces of paper on my desk that I didn't even know existed, and there would be a note there for me. And always connected. So I appreciate all of your help, Pat. Now I do have one more thing. Last year when we were sitting up here at the deliberative session, Pat made a comment, gee, you don't need to make all of this fuss over me. This is just me doing what I'm doing. I don't need these plaques. You could have gone down to the dump and written something on a piece of cardboard for me. So Pat, it's a year late, but I got you the cardboard. And I want you to know it's special. I used the white cardboard as well. It just very simply, Pat, thank you for sharing your love of Litchfield with me and your commitment to serve it every day. In order to keep everything running in a community, governments rely on volunteers, a lot of volunteers. Most of what we are able to achieve is because of those volunteers. We have people who are elected, we have people who are appointed. Regardless of how you find yourself in that seat, you're sitting there often for long hours, often after you've worked all day, and really being the engine that drives this community. Those of us that work in town hall all day, we can assist, but it really comes down to the authority and the responsibility is the volunteers that are serving on these boards and committees. And so for that, I am tremendously grateful. I'm in a unique position probably because of my role. I get to see and interact with most of the boards, committees, and officials across all disciplines. Whether it's a visit in my office, a phone call, an email, any of those things, I usually have a sense of what's happening. And there are days that, I will be honest, I'm driving home and thinking that I don't envy insert board here what they have to cover at that night's meeting. So I recognize and truly appreciate it. We could not do what we're doing without you. And for us, looking at how would we best recognize what Pat's service to this community was, and our view on from the town was we really need to take the inspiration from that, recognize those that are serving this community now, and start finding ways to encourage and grow that in the future. I think you heard a quote earlier from a newspaper story from several decades ago lamenting participation. I think we're always going to have that, and the challenge is how do we continue to get people involved, and more importantly, how do we recognize, support, and appreciate those who are involved, because it's too easy just to have those meetings happen and for us not to pause and really say thank you and appreciate the effort that people are putting in. So we are kicking this off today, and I'll speak a little bit more at the end of this about how we're looking at continuing to do this in future years, because this is not a one-off event by any means. But what we are going to do right now, with the selectmen and I have prepared certificates recognizing all of the various appointed and elected officials who are serving this community. Very, straightforward certificate, Town of Litchfield, New Hampshire, 2014, Pat Jewett Volunteer Appreciation Day, March 1st, 2015. This certificate is presented with great appreciation to, in recognition of your dedication and service to our community. So, I also do feel as I look out in the audience here, in some cases, we should have a second set of certificates for first, knowing how my bread is buttered, we will recognize the Board of Selectmen. John Brunel, Brent Lemire, Kevin Bork, Frank Byron, and Steve Perry. Thank you. Next, we have the moderator and assistant moderator, John Regan and Phil Reed, who will be very busy a week from Tuesday. Thank you. The cemetery trustees, Warren Adams, Stephen Cowla, Jody Frazier. Thank you. The supervisors of the checklist, Robert Redding, Joan McKibben, and Shirley Reed, who you will also be able to see a week from Tuesday. Two people very important to me each week, Office of the Treasurer, Sharon Harding Reed, and Deb Hogenkamp, the Deputy Treasurer. Thank you. The trustees of trust funds, Michael Falzone, John Poulos, and Stephen Cowell. Thank you.
Continuing on, from the Cable Advisory Committee, Richard Piffany, Russell Blanchett, Timothy Kearns, and Brian Millett, and Cynthia Couture. For the Zoning Board of Adjustment, the one I actually started on, Richard Riley, John Regan, Laura Gandia, Thomas Cooney, Albert, Giblet, thank you, Eric Cushing, Gregory Lepine, and John Devereux. For the Planning Board and also two NRPC members, Russell Blanchett, Jason Goret, Michael Capriano, Robert Curtis, Michael Couture, who's also the NRPC rep, and Thomas Shun, also the NRPC rep. For my final one, Conservation Commission, Thomas Levesque, Joan McKibben, Roger St. Clair, Sharon Jones, Richard Husband, Michael Couture, and Marianne Gosset. And thank you all.
I'd just like to take a second. It truly is a pleasure to be here today and to share the stage with such distinguished guests, and especially M. Patricia Jewett. I've known Pat for the better part of 38 years in town. I've served with her or worked with her on both the budget committee, selectmen, and when I was fire chief and on the fire department. And I just would like to, the only thing really, Pat, I could say, anything more, is that just like my fellow citizens, we owe you a debt of gratitude that can probably never be repaid. Thank you. And those of you that have seen me up at microphones over the years are astute to notice that I haven't gotten any taller. I'd like to honor the volunteers for the budget committee. Andrew Cutter, Cynthia Couture, Carrie Douglas, Daniel Valancourt, Raymond Peoples, Brian Bork, William Pascucci. Thank you. Library trustees, Gail Musco, Lynn Clifford, Kristen Robert, Peggy Drew, and Christine McKim. Thank you. Mosquito Control District, Alfred Raccio, John Latchett, David Tate. Thank you all. And the Recreation Commission, John Bryan, Sandy Vance, Andrew Collins, Jessica Filbert, Colleen Gamache, Keith Buxton, and Elizabeth Darling. Thank you.
The town of Litchfield conducted a Letters to Pat drive where the town asked members of our community and individuals to write a thank you letter to Pat for her years of service or perhaps retell a special memory or story. The town collected many letters. Some were mailed or dropped off at the town hall or emailed to me. I would like to share a few of the sentiments that were expressed in some of these letters. Common themes to describe Pat. A best friend you'll never find unless you know Pat. A faithful worker. One of the friendliest people I know. Dedicated, friendly, generous, caring, a treasure, tireless, touched so many, hardworking, thoughtful, committed, the epitome of American spirit, an inspiration, a great example, admirable, a good listener, a problem solver, a role model, a legacy, a huge impact on so many. People also recalled her service on multiple boards, her effect on education, hosting many collections, helping someone in need, buying and delivering groceries to people, cooking meals, sending notes of cheer when people needed it, cooking treats, her famous apple pies, and many said that you love this town more than anyone. Some letters stood out, and I would like to read from one. Pat always thinks of herself before others. She goes above and beyond the typical definition of friend, volunteer, and citizen. She instilled and expected a sense of volunteerism in all those who knew her. I hope all of us who have had the pleasure of knowing Pat can pass along at least one volunteer effort and think of Pat as we perform these duties. I am sure that she will be proud to know that she influenced at least one act of kindness. I know she has influenced my life in a positive way. That was Susan Seabrook. There were also some humor in some letters. For example, one letter read, "Sometimes the lines between the facts and legend of Pat Jewett get blurred. Just a few contributions that everyone might not know about include, when Litchfield boys joined up for World War II, you were there with freshly baked cookies. When the doughboys went off to World War I, you donned their socks that were worn in the trenches. As a young girl, you volunteered to be a nurse during the Civil War. In 1839, Henry David Thoreau took a river trip down the Concord and Merrimack rivers. The journals and observations that Thoreau made over those 2 weeks comprised his first book, A Week on the Concord and Merrimack Rivers. Pat is mentioned in that book as the Litchfield technical advisor. This letter continued to read, "There is one story that I like to put to rest. Contrary to popular belief, Pat did not teach Chief Piscataway how to make arrowheads." Thank you, Richard LaSalle. Pat, I would now like you to come forward to receive all of these letters and ask that you remain with us while John Brunel presents you with an award.
you're on the right track. You'll get run over if you just sit there. And I think that's true. So many people start out and think, oh, I'm fine. I can do this. It's easy. But then they find out there's some little stone in the way or something and they can't make it. So I have made up some ideas of things. My biggest surprise was the day that I won selectman. There hadn't been a woman selectman in town, and I was so surprised. And I made my signs up out of cardboard that I took out from the dump. And also, I went all around to the things in the town hall and said, don't you have some cardboard or oak tag that's used on one side and I could use the other? And so I did. And people laughed at me. They said, Pat, you know, you'll never win with those signs. I said, that's okay. If I don't win, I don't win. But I won, and I was so surprised. That was the most thing that surprised me the most in that. The scariest thing I ever did, that was done in my job, is we ever learn any. Talked to Jeff Parsons from the high school. He said, Pat, I know some of them that have gone into service this year. And so I put an ad in the Hudson Litchfield News and asked them, would they please have people tell me how many or anybody that they knew, and I would find out. And so I got the addresses. I looked them up in the book, and some of them weren't even in the telephone book. And so I found out, and we went and made boxes for them and their addresses and all. And those that had to be mailed, Jack Elgio was wonderful. He mailed them for us for free. And so that was wonderful, because I thought, oh boy. And then the rest of them that were home for Christmas or New Year's, we dropped them off at the house and where each one lived. And it was amazing to see the families and to see the servicemen. And they had never seen anything like it. And I thought it was real fun to do. So I hoped it was going to continue on for the rest of the time, but I don't know. I don't think it did this year. Okay. Another thing, this is kind of funny. At the time, it wasn't funny. But anyway, I decided that we wanted a dog kennel. All we had was a little dog house out beside the old fire station over here. And I said, oh, those poor dogs. And so somebody put a piece of burlap on the front of it and said, well, now that it's going to be warm for them. And I said, no way. They shouldn't have been there this year. They wouldn't have, poor things would have never lived. So anyway, I said, well, you know, how can we earn some money and something that doesn't cost anybody any money? And so Will and I went to Loudon the first time they had the races up there. And as you remember, there was loads of people and they didn't have enough roads to get out and all. So we first we sat in a car, and then I thought, oh, this is awful. And we ended up sitting and picking up stuff for 4.5 or almost 5 hours, picking up tin cans. And I said, oh, and I met this lady from Hollis, and she said, oh, I have some more bags. I have some big black bags I keep in my car. And so we went and we picked up 3 big bags, and I thought, wow. But so I had asked the town lawyer, we don't have the same one now, and said, is that legal? Can I take him to Lowell, to the recycling center? He said, oh, sure, you'll be able to do that, okay, and all. And I said, okay, but I don't want to have to, work hard and not make any money for the town for the dog kennel. And so we said, okay, so we had 2 van loads full. So 2 different times we went down, and I had collected $83.31 from the cans. And I was all excited. And I brought the check in, another check, a paper in, and the money, and to give to Cecile to put in a fund for our dog kennel. And what do you know? About 10 days later, I got a letter from the state of Massachusetts, actually. They wanted to know, it wasn't directly to me because they didn't know who I was, but evidently they must have looked at Will's number plate and found out that we were from New Hampshire. So we had to mail the check back to, that just about killed me. That was, I can't believe it, okay? The most fun I had on an activity, I was on the Recreation Commission as a liaison from the town selectmen. And so I used to go to all their meetings and I enjoyed that and all. But then it was time for a family fun day, and everybody that said, and some of the people are here that was on that Recreation Commission at that time and all. And it's kind of fun to look back and think of all the fun that we had. So we decided we'd have a family fun day, and we wanted to do it so people didn't have to pay a lot of money. We wanted everybody to come. So we sold hot dogs for 10 cents, we had hamburgers for 15 cents, a bag of potato chips for a nickel, and some drink. It wasn't probably McDonald's because they probably gave it to us. And we sold that for 10 cents. In those days, they didn't drink water. They drank soda or whatever, But anyway, and we sold hot coffee for 15 cents. Well, we were surprised. We thought, oh boy, we're never gonna make enough money to pay for. And we made our own ribbons, and we used cardboard from the dump to reinforce it and all. So we had fun. And we ended up making $26.31 profit. And we didn't have to give that back to the town. That was recreation money. And we were all excited to keep it and all. And we kept it for the recreation fund. I think, let's see. What was the most exhausting thing we ever did? Well, it was several, but one of them that was very hard was town cleanup day. And I thought the dump was open until 5 o'clock, and Will said, no, it closes at 4. So anyway, we picked them up, all the bags, and we had to go around the road, and we told everybody, if you pick up trash, just leave your bag there, and we'll pick up your cans and all, and we'll keep the cans out and put that toward our dog kennel. So anyway, we did that, and we got home, and we got up to the incinerator, or up to the dump, I can't remember, and we found out that, oh boy, it was closed. And I said, oh, holy cow, what are we going to do with all this trash? Because it won't open again until Thursday. So I said, we'll call Dave Mellon and see if we can bring it up, and he'll open it up on Sunday morning for us. And so anyway, we went home that night, and to make it easier, we separated all the bags of trash, one with burnable things, aluminum and stainless steel cans, paper and all. So we had ended up with 5 different bags of things to give for the recycling place. And so we felt exhausted. Another thing we did, not everything we did or that I had charge of was successful. Here was something that was, I never told many people this, it wasn't successful. We collected all the clothes and treasures, some toys and so forth. It was like held in November. And we were going to have a free gift place that you could come and pick up anything you wanted, and all the clothes and all you'd like to take, you were welcome to take it. So we went up on Friday night, and we spread the things out and lined them all up nice and appropriately and all. And so Saturday we got there, and I said, oh, we'll have a lot of people if it's free. But no way. So we stayed there from 9 until 4 on Saturday and 9 to 4 on Sunday. We only had one mother and her daughter come. And then I thought, what are we going to do with all these clothes? So I can remember getting a call from the epilepsy group and all of New Hampshire, this was. And I said, oh, we could do that. We could give those things to them. So I talked to a couple more people that had helped me and had donated things for it. And they all said, oh, that would be great. So we did that. And we got rid of 25 bags of clothes. We had a woman and her daughter only took 5 articles, and we had over 500. And I thought, oh, what are we going to do? It was terrible. Another thing that was most exhausting for me was picking up the trash along the roads. And I wanted to get everything. And so I always did Cutler Road. And I thought it was easy because I thought it was short. But there were more trees there, and more people threw out their trash. And we found some very interesting articles on that. What was the saddest thing I ever did while being a selectman? It was writing a letter of resignation, because I had vertigo 3 times in 2 months, and my doctor told me I couldn't drive anymore. I thought, that's a lot of baloney. And anyway, I had to follow it because he wrote a letter to the state, and they asked me to have return my license to them, and I thought, oh. But anyway, I did. stay, I'd stay in the office until the day after the election so that the new person could take over right away and all. It was interesting to see and all. And another thing that was real interesting, one time I ran and there were 5 men running against me. Well, that day, that night, about 5 o'clock, I was putting up my last sign. It was on a Friday night, and Will was doing it with me, of course. And so he took the sledgehammer and the sign and the stick for it, but he didn't bring the stapler with him. So I went back thought I was going to go to the car and just run up with a stapler. But when I got up to my car, it was a little slant, very little slant, and I evidently put it in park, a neutral instead of park, and it rolled down this little incline. Oh, so I said, I'm going to stop it. So I started to step out, and I was knocked over, and I fell, and the car ran over my left leg, and I thought, oh, what am I going to do? And I didn't know if it's broken or not, and so another man behind me jumped out of his car and came and moved my car, stopped my car and moved it ahead. And so then they said, well, you have to walk down to your car. And they said, don't you want to call the police? And don't you want to call everybody to come help you and all? And I said, no, because that was the night that I was running for selectman. That was Meet Your Candidate night, and I didn't want to miss that. So, boy, I went, and I said to Will, if you tell anybody about that accident that I had with my leg, I won't bake you another pie. Boy, oh boy, I thought, oh. So this was my motto of firm, fair, and fun. I want to have fun, everything I do. I don't want it to be not fun, but I want people to do what they say they're going to do, and I want to be very fair. That was my motto in teaching, too. I would tell the kids the first time I had them, you know what, there were 3 things that I worked with and all, and this is what I expect of you. And they looked at me and I said, the first one is firm. And one of the kids said, what do you mean firm? And he started to touch his arm. No, I have fat. And I said, oh no, not that firm. But another firm means that you're going to be polite, you're going to listen to me, you're going to be respectful, and you're going to be respectful to other people. And so then firm, fair, and I said, I'm very fair, I'll never cheat you of a grade, and I taught special ed for the last, I retired, and then I went and substituted for 8 years, but I taught actually special ed about 22 years, I think. And then I was a physical education teacher before that. In those days, we didn't have gymnasiums like they do now, and even some of the classrooms I had to teach in had screwed down desks. So I had to teach ball bouncing to the first graders, jump roping, and square dancing. Now you try to teach that in a classroom of 40 first graders. They had 40 at Amherst Street and Arlington Street, and I rotated around, and I had every class once every 3 weeks, and I had 7 schools. So see, we've gone a long way since then. But it was fun. I loved it, and I love physical education, and I would have loved it and been in it probably longer, but I got arthritis from being out in the cold. And kids would say, well, why don't we go in our classroom? I said, no, we have to stay outdoors until the snow gets to your ankles. And I'd remind the teachers, be sure those kids wear boots tomorrow or whatever, because we're going to be outdoors. And they all kind of poo-pooed me and thought I was just talking, but we were. And that's how come I got arthritis so badly. Okay? And the day that I wrote my resignation, I sat at the kitchen table, and I was dripping, crying so much that I had to put it away for a while and then take it out another day and write it. I just couldn't do it without crying. So at this time, I'd like to say that I really, really appreciate all that the volunteers did to help me. I never could have done half what we did if I didn't have volunteers. And I really appreciated it so much and all. We had a lot of fun, and we had some heartaches sometimes, but on the whole, it was just wonderful. It was well worth all the time. So I would like to thank Laura Gandia for thinking of this when she told me about it. I said, I thought, what's she talking about? Who will come? Some of these people I haven't seen for 20 years. But anyway, you came, and I'm delighted, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate all the volunteering. Boy, what people have helped me with, because I never could have done it. So again, thank you to you all, and thanks for coming too.
Well, can't think of a better way to kick off the whole idea of the Pat Jewett Volunteer Award Program. The bar has been set very high, as we have heard over and over again today. Going forward, what the intention of the town is to present the Pat Jewett Volunteer of the Year Award each year to another volunteer that we feel best embodies in that given year the community and civic spirit and the role model that Pat has set for us. And so each year, beginning of March, we expect to be in this spot. The proceeds from today's event to help kick that off, any of the remaining proceeds are going to be deposited into a trust fund with the town that will be able to be used to recognize and encourage volunteerism in our community. So I want to thank you for all being at the beginning of this today, and know that we intend to continue doing this each year. You got the first piece of granite, Pat. We will be continuing to give those in future years, and there will be a plaque recognizing in Town Hall each successive winner of this. So thank you for setting that benchmark for us. With that, our presentation here is going to draw to a close. Those of you that are staying for dinner, we want to continue to go out and bear to your right. Want to thank Natticook Grill for their assistance in making that dinner happen tonight. I appreciate everybody who has come and supported this event. And in particular, I want to thank Laura as well for really putting all of the pieces together for this. Thank you. Thanks again, and let's keep serving our community.